I don't understand how people would know Buddha attained Nibbana if he didn't come back to tell people about it. Well, okay, so the first thing is that he obviously can't come back to tell people about it. This is correct. So it's the one thing that that one could never let another being know. So we really don't know whether the Buddha attained Nibbana. But on the other hand, we're not looking for facts of this sort. We're not looking to know whether the historic Buddha ever existed, or whether he was truly enlightened, or whether he truly attained Nibbana or Parinibbana. Just as we're not looking to try to find out if there are past lives, or whether when we die there is a future life, or whether the heavenly realms exist or don't exist. We're not interested in this. What we're interested in is the framework of reality, how reality works. And what we come to see in relation to the Buddha's enlightenment is that the things that we have inherited as being the teachings of the Buddha appear to us to be in line with reality, and become verified by us through our practice as being from what we have seen, from our experience, in line with reality, to the extent that we understand the Buddha to be enlightened, or we understand that these teachings to be the teachings of enlightened beings, that if one subscribes to these, or one subscribes to these teachings because one is enlightened, that a person who subscribes to these teachings, or a person who understands and relates these teachings as being direct experience, is an enlightened being. But we only get to that point once we become an arahant, once we become enlightened ourselves. In the meantime, based on our experience, we begin to appreciate the Buddha's teaching. We see the benefit of the Buddha's teaching, and we see the truth of the Buddha's teaching, and we come to realize the teachings for ourselves. And the more we do, the more faith we gain in the Buddha, until finally we realize the truth for ourselves and understand that the things that the Buddha taught were the truth. And at the same time, have based on this, have faith in some of the things that the Buddha said. Like, a person might, I suppose, even become an arahant and not ever remember their past lives, but they still accept it, that there is a past and a future life, or for example, that the Buddha attained parinibbana, or that when a person enters into, or when an arahant passes away, or a Buddha passes away, there is no more returning, there is the entering into nibbana. So an arahant might take these things on faith, or they might be able to understand them themselves. But there will be certain things that an arahant, an enlightened follower of the Buddha, will have to take on faith. Many of the things that the Buddha taught, based on his superior knowledge, knowledge of past lives, knowledge of the future, what's going to happen in the future, and so on, that an arahant would take on faith, based on their assurance, their understanding that the Buddha is enlightened, which they have come to understand, come to accept, based on their realization of the things that the Buddha taught. So, whether the Buddha himself entered into parinibbana or these sorts of questions is not really the point, and it's something that you can put aside and eventually take on faith based on your realization of the core teachings, like what is the truth of suffering, what is the cause of suffering, what is the cessation of suffering, and what is the path that leads to the cessation of suffering. When you realize these for yourself, then you will, I would say you come to realize for yourself what happens when an arahant dies. When someone who is free from greed, anger, and delusion dies, you come to understand that they have nothing more after that. So you can therefore accept that the Buddha, the teacher of all of this, is most likely, even though we can't verify it for ourselves, entered into Nibbana